John Hamilton for the introduction and overview to get this glorious evening started.
Thank you very much. It is good to be with you, council members. I appreciate you welcoming our administration once again to present the proposed city annual budget over the next 4 nights for calendar year 2023. As usual, I will begin with some shared overall comments and an outline of the entire budget, and followed then by Controller Underwood to give some more specifics, and then Human Resources Director Shaw, and then, of course, the full series of city department heads in the coming evening. So, if I may just begin a moment with an acknowledgement. We acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities native to this region and recognize that our community is built on indigenous homelands and resources. We recognize the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. We also recognize that much of the economic progress and development in our community has resulted from unpaid labor and forced servitude of people of color, and specifically enslaved African labor. I wanted to make that acknowledgement as we begin our deliberations. Let me also, at the outset, thank the staff who have worked so hard, not only on this budget, but on city government. In particular, the cabinet members you will hear from, leaders of all of our departments, who I am very, very pleased and proud to serve with, as well as the 800 city employees. A particular thanks to those whose Herculean efforts over the last few weeks, months, including Controller Jeff Underwood, Lieutenants Cheryl Gilliland and Jeff McMillan, and all of their department. Thank you for your extraordinary efforts to bring us to today. So to the budget, first with some essential context. Let's remember what we've been through in recent years. A once-in-a-century global pandemic, a major recession, the worst U.S. presidency in history, an accelerating climate emergency, pernicious ongoing realities of racial and other discrimination, continued radical agendas from our state government on guns, public education, and now most outrageously on reproductive rights, effectively banning abortions in Indiana as of 17 days from today. In the face of all this, since 2020, we have a powerful and welcome partner in the federal government with the CARES Act, the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS, and more. And locally, since 2020, we have together invested through Recover Forward to protect and advance our community, all with the incredible, essential public servants in the city of Bloomington. During hard times to be a public servant, I might add, as many in this room know. Amid all of these challenges and with our mutual commitments, we have made great progress, 1,100 plus units of affordable housing, significant local wage growth, unprecedented new digital equity programs, and new infrastructure on the horizon, always improving outstanding parks and trails, our Hopewell and Trades District projects, essential investments in economic development, including our arts and local food sectors, and our potential convention center and Showers City Hall expansions. As you well know as well, City of Bloomington Utilities, the Housing Authority, and Bloomington Transit continue to innovate and upgrade and be leaders in our state and region. That's collaboration and results we can be very proud of. A second, last context point, this is a proposed budget that is the product of months of collaboration and listening to council members, to the public, including our 3 biennial city surveys with the 4th coming next year. We look forward to continuing that collaboration in the coming weeks. We began with meetings and discussions in specific and earnest in April on this budget, with dozens of conversations and meetings that have since informed and shaped this budget including, of course, the extensive debate and work on the new economic development local income tax and its designated uses. Okay, to the main event. The annual city budget is our single most important policy document. It reflects many interests, priorities, trade-offs. My job is to present a coherent and a balanced budget. I would also say a progressive budget to meet our times. State law outlines the process that we follow with lots of Bloomington additions and extras. Tonight is my 7th budget presentation to this council, and no doubt this is the most significant of those 7. It is transformative. It is not an overstatement, in my view, to say that with this budget, we will be ushering in a new era for Bloomington. Out of the pandemic and recession and more, this transformative budget leads into a new future, into this decade of the 2020s. In a way, we are making Recover Forward permanent, instituting it into city plans and budgets with our focus on building climate justice, economic justice, and racial justice. Now, we know also we face significant inflation and wage and hiring and retirement pressures as an employer. Like all employers, these are challenging times. And as a public employer, we note that democracy itself is under pressure. We have, I believe, a special obligation in these times as a government employer to make sure our city government is healthy and nourished up to the tasks of providing services and meeting the moment, and yes, sustaining a healthy democracy. If you believe that democracy is under serious threat, we have special obligations to make sure our local democracy, embodied in our local government, is vibrant and vital. So let me share a few general observations about how this budget meets those opportunities and challenges. Of course, I'm not going to get into the dozens of details you will hear in the coming days from all of our departments, but let me start with the basic numbers. With Economic Development Local Income Tax, ED-LIT, and American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, and other revenue, our general civil city budget proposed is $129 million. That compares to $107 million for the current 2022 budget, up $22 million, or about 20% from 2022 to 2023. The total budget, when you include utilities, transit, and housing authority, is $229 million, comparing to $178 million for 2022, or a 29% increase. I'm going to go into what these investments mean in a moment, and Controller Underwood will add details as well. Let us note that the healthy growth of our property tax levy and general income tax revenues, and in particular the new ED-LIT adopted by this council unanimously last spring, and continuing federal support, allows all of this. This transformative budget is best understood with 3 focus points. First, we strongly support city employees and all government basic services and affirm the central role of great public services. This budget helps us be a workplace of choice for all our employees. It embodies the notion that we have an ambitious and innovative city government that is an employer of choice, delivering cost-effective, modern services in ways that advance the quality of life for current and for future Bloomingtonians. Second, we embrace sustainability, in particular with transformative investments in public transit and our climate action plan. We know this makes a stronger community. It embodies the notion that Bloomington is committed to addressing the climate emergency and building a sustainable, equitable economy. And third, we embrace inclusion and justice, a city that welcomes all and works for all. This embodies the notion that Bloomington is committed to being a safe, just, and inclusive community where everyone belongs and can thrive, including with good jobs, affordable housing, and inspiring arts and public spaces. Now, let me highlight in more detail some of the major changes in this transformative budget. Let's start by digging into how this budget embodies being an employer of choice and strengthening all of our basic services. The 2023 budget makes unprecedented investments in all of our people, strengthening all of our basic services. Supported by the ED Lit and federal resources, this budget proposes, first, a 5% cost of living adjustment for all non-union employees. Unions receive their own contracted amounts. Second, reflecting the special challenges of this period, from inflation to pandemic to public services generally, the budget includes a $1,000 bonus to be paid quarterly to public service employees, to all employees, a $1,000 bonus to paid all employees, with the exception of sworn BPD officers and dispatch staff who recently had their own significant adjustments. Third, this budget proposes a new deferred compensation matching program available to all employees, union or non, up to $780 per year, matching either 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 employee voluntary retirement contributions. That's a new program to support our employees. Fourth, this budget proposes establishing a primary care health clinic for employees and families by the end of the year. It also expands, as we just announced last week, housing assistance to our first responders to include firefighters with police, including an $18,000 down payment for a house or $750 a month rent for those living in the city. Human Resources Director Shaw will share more details shortly, including health care benefits, parental leave, and tuition reimbursement pilots, salary studies, and more. The budget proposes 17.5 net new positions in the civil city, with another 13.5 new positions planned by Utilities, Transit, and Housing Authority. Most of those are paid for by ED Lit and other sources besides the general fund. Public safety receives particular focus. We have outstanding public safety services. We continue to be the only city in Indiana with a top-rated certified fire department, ISO 1, and a nationally accredited police department, the only one, with lowering crime rates and with 0 fire fatalities and 10 confirmed saves in the last 6 years. Both of these departments continue to evolve and innovate and lead progressive change. You'll hear more about that, I know, tomorrow evening. For now, note that the budget funds 9 new public safety positions, including a social worker to operate directly with 911 dispatch, 2 fire health interventionists at the fire department, 3 additional community care specialists at police, a full-time dedicated public safety recruiter position, and a new position at CFRD, Community and Family Resources, as well. In addition, the 2023 budget funds these housing incentives I mentioned. There are 7 police using the rental subsidies now, and of course it supports very much needed new facilities for both police and fire. Other basic services investments are protected and strengthened by ARPA. Our national accreditation continues. You may recall 6 years ago we had only parks as a nationally accredited department. Today we have added police and fire, and next year we expect to add public works as a nationally accredited department. Of course, Housing Authority and Utilities and Transit themselves all have related federal oversight and not exactly accreditation, but similar. I will also urge you to look at the recently released City Annual Goals Update for 2022, just released last week, 564 specific goals of our department and the outcomes thus far in 2022. Of course, you can look back to 2021. I'm not going to go through all the excellence of our departments, from the double gold medal of parks to the sanitation reform, affordable housing we mentioned, and all the work of planning and ESD and others. I'll just note I'm really proud of the basic services that we provide. As to sustainability, this budget is indeed transformative. We begin in 2023 an annual more than $1.6 million appropriation directly to fund our climate action plan implementation. You will see details of that range of investments with the Economic Sustainability Department. And of course, transit is entering a new era. This budget reflects a planned memorandum of understanding to invest just under $4 million in local dollars to expand public transit services. BT's annual budget leverages that local funding to grow from $15 million this year to $35 million next year. They already were awarded a new $7 million federal grant to buy 8 new electric buses, in no small part because of the support from the local money. And I just want to compare this very, very significant level of local support for climate with the federal. So stay with me just a moment. But we just learned recently of the new federal $375 billion investment in climate that was part of the Inflation Reduction Act, an unprecedented level of federal investment for climate, direct climate work. Now, I know these aren't exactly apples to apples, but that was the big new federal program. That works out to $1,100 per capita in the United States over the next 10 years, roughly, that huge climate investment. Our local investment of $55 million, $5.5 million a year for the next 10 years, is the equivalent of about $650 per capita locally. So just chew on that we're locally doing 2/3 the level of the national unprecedented climate investment. So it's a really significant step for us. I'm really proud we're doing it locally, and I wanted just to share that comparison. As to inclusion and justice, this budget also sets a new high bar. With ED Lit support, we are investing $1 million directly in affordable housing. That adds to the $5 million in one-time ARPA money this year and last that we've set aside already, and another $1 million in the Economic Equity Fund to support low-income working families facing struggles. We look forward to working with you on details of this and other programs now and in the future, including more than $300,000 in funding for job readiness and local food and arts programs to continue the critical momentum of Recover Forward. We also continue the work of the Racial Equity Plan, the Future Policing Task Force, and the DEI collaboration with IU and other partners. So with this transformative budget, we are doing many new things, very importantly, and expanding future-oriented efforts. We also cannot keep doing everything that we do today. We have to set priorities and pivot away from things also that let us save money and address future priorities better. One way we do that is by doing more work without more staff and resources. For example, this budget does not expand the number of hand apartment inspectors, even though each inspector is today responsible for 27% more apartment inspections than they were in 2010. They're getting more and more efficient. Our 8 fleet mechanics today are each responsible for 42% more vehicles now compared to 2004, when we also had 8 mechanics. We are proposing to add 1 mechanic in this budget, which would mean each fleet mechanic is then responsible for only 27% more vehicles than they were in 2004. There are other more direct changes we're proposing in this budget. making some hard choices, and I hope you'll agree. We look forward to working on them with you. 1, we plan to continue to reform sanitation, putting it on a 3-year path to zero general fund subsidy. This continues our major reforms of 2017 and depends on working with you, Council, taking action and adjustment to cart fees. 2, we're planning changes to our leafing program. With continued regular lawn waste pickup and intensive support for mulching and composting, we are proposing a termination of the free curbside vacuum services for 2023. 3, we're planning to seek to transfer street sweeping responsibilities to utilities, focusing on their stormwater management responsibilities, which can increase the level of street sweeping substantially and may be accomplished with a 1 or 2 year subsidy to help support that transfer. 4th, we plan to develop a reduction or elimination of coin services from our parking meters. This will save money, allow more flexibility in our banking relationships, and also we will accompany it with improvements in the meter protocols to give customers better experiences and options. 5th, we plan to convert a parcel of city-owned property, likely a surface parking lot, into affordable housing next year. We look forward to working together to determine which one and how, but we think that's a good step. And finally, in this list anyway, we plan to convene a review of our 911 protocols and deployments to maximize efficiency and reflect our community values, to review how best to deploy our sworn public safety resources and identify best practices nationally. These adjustments will let us reassign existing employees from some of these activities to more sidewalk improvements and clearing and installation of ADA ramps and better paving, expanding Brighton B-Town, perhaps snow clearing as well. So to summarize the budget, size at $129 million, up 20%, including the 3 outside entities, up to $229 million. Positions, 17.5 net new civil city jobs, plus 13.5 you'll hear from our 3 affiliated entities. That's about a 3% growth of employment. These major new investments, unprecedented and transformative, are supported primarily by ED Lit at $16 million and ARPA at $5 million. Finally, after a review of those key components, let me conclude briefly with just some quick updates. As to ARPA and Recover Forward, to date, you'll recall in 2021, we dedicated $3.4 million for housing, nearly $1 million in ESD, and $700,000 in lead abatement. In 2022, current year, we have dedicated about $10 million of ARPA for housing, 3.6, for economic sustainable development, 1.6, for revenue replacement, 3.2 million, mostly to police and fire, parks, and streets. Infrastructure, about $1 million this year going to information technology and engineering, and $500,000 for COVID relief payments. Proposing for 2023 is about $4.9 million in ARPA revenue replacement, going to capital for parks and engineering, again, parks and engineering at almost $3 million, and to streets for operations, street sweeping, traffic management enhancement, about $400,000 for project management of major projects ahead, another $330,000 for economic sustainable development, and smaller amounts for tuition reimbursement pilots and others. We shared a memo as well with you last week on 5 other topics of updates. I'm just going to itemize it. Happy to take questions about the 2 5-year bond projects which are underway. We gave you an update on where those stand, including 2 projects we're able to fund outside the bonds, the Griffey Lake dam crossing and $25,000 for battery equipment at parks. It also updated the Hopewell project, the potential showers building purchase, and updated our regulation and management of electric scooters locally, as well as some potential new composting efforts. As you know, we're working as well to activate and advance the potential expansion of our downtown convention center, which could be a substantial effort yet this year and in 2023 and beyond. The two issues that are not items in our city budget, I just want to mention because I believe they are major challenges in our community's wider budget. One is the challenge of criminal justice reform, and the second is our public health system, in particular, our mental health system and support for people experiencing substance use disorder. These are all related. This is not the time or place for details here tonight, but I just will emphasize the importance of major upcoming investments in these areas, I believe, as part of transforming our community's future. So having presented the budget summary, I'll note our public input will continue ongoing with you, with the public, commissions, etc. We are fortunate to live in a great city of Bloomington, Indiana. I am pleased to present to you a transformative 2023 budget that makes that future even brighter, more sustainable, more just, more inclusive, with a city government staffed by some of the finest public servants anywhere.